morning, everybody. The topic of today's webinar is the two-tier strategy of SAP solutions. We will dig into what we mean by that, and I think there might be some different thoughts about that, but at the end it's a matter of actually taking the advantage of different solutions, but we'll get back to that. First, I will introduce B1 Solutions and why we think this is an important topic due to the strategy we have in our company and also the customers that we have had over the last 15 years. Then Peter Mulder from SAP will give you some insights about how SAP will actually see the topic of two-tier strategy, and Uffe will join us from VELUX, who's one of our very important customers at B1 Solutions, and tell their story. And as Lucille just said, finally we will have there will be an option for some Q&As, and as Lucille said, please use the option of Q&A in the bottom of the Zoom app and not the chat. To do that, it makes it easier to follow up on it. But before we go on, we will have a short introduction of the panel, and I will be humble enough to start with myself. My name is Mastrup, and I've been working in the SAP community for quite some years, since '97 actually. I joined SAP then. Mainly actually working with the larger enterprises and the large-scale solutions, which today is named S/4HANA. I will refer to non-S/4HANA as SAP ECC, which was the name that was actually used before. But the thing was that I was working in Denmark and the Nordic area and also around Europe with a lot of international customers using SAP ECC, and that's where I have my background. The last 15 years, I had my own company together with some colleagues in Denmark, a Danish SAP partner, starting out working mainly with the larger enterprises, with the consulting services. So I have a lot of experience with companies trying to embrace an international organization with the larger scaled solutions. The last 5 or 6 years, I have mainly been focusing on SAP Business One actually, and in May last year I joined B1 Solution to focus on our service deliveries in the Nordic area, an area where we were not present before, but we are now, and that is a great opportunity for us to engage with some of the larger enterprises in the Nordic area. So have been working with customers around the world, implementing and supporting primarily chosen a strategy to work with primarily larger companies. We have actually been working with quite a lot of customers who have what we call a two-tier strategy, meaning that they might work with the SAP ECC from a central point of view, or maybe some larger sites, and then B1 Solution in smaller sites. So it's the nature of our service delivery to be part of customers who are actually dealing with both solutions. So we have a lot of experience in that. We see a lot of benefits, and that's something that we will talk about today. I know Peter have a lot of information, and obviously Uffe have been in an organization for quite some years who have actually been working with that strategy. So, but that's my background, the reason why I'm working with B1 Solutions today, and hopefully in the future we will also work a lot more with S/4HANA in the Nordic area, because that's also something that we focus on at B1 Solutions, but I will get back to that. But Peter, maybe you can give a short intro about yourself and shortly cover the topics.
Yeah, thank you, Benny. So welcome everybody, and thanks for taking a bit of your time. My name is Peter Mulder. I'm with SAP now for 14 years. And I've been working in the ERP industry for since 1995. My background is very diverse. I've worked in many different roles within the ERP industry, software industry, customer support. I've been working in implementation, consulting. I've done training development and delivery. Also work with partners in partner enablement, and for the last 5 years, I'm responsible for channel sales in the Nordics and Baltics. And within SAP, I have the territory responsibility, and the portfolio that I'm responsible for is SAP Business One, SAP Business by Design, and S/4HANA Cloud. So it's for me really the ERP space that I'm responsible for. And those are also the products that SAP has that are used in a two-tier strategy. And that is what we also see within SAP. We work and we come from the domain of large enterprises and medium enterprises. Companies around the world, different industries. So those companies are mainly working in a single tier environment at the moment. But we do see that more and more companies actually either through acquisition or because of just not having enough time from a central IT organization point of view or whatever reason, we do see that companies actually don't only have a single tier solution, they have multiple ERP solutions next to the main tier solution. One example is when I spoke with a Nordic customer from SAP who mentioned that next to SAP, they have across the world 32 other ERPs. That in itself poses, of course, quite a few challenges for an organization to maintain that, that landscape, basically. And more, we are in the discussions about, okay, how could we harmonize it in such a way? People think single tier, everything on the same platform. But on the other hand, also recognizing and working on the fact that those companies and those entities actually do have other solutions for various reasons. And they might not be fitting on the main tier solution. And that is a discussion that we are getting more and more from our clients. And that is, of course, something that needs to be more strategized. Companies sometimes ignore the problem because everybody's busy focusing on those entities that really matter significantly to the organization, and ignore the rest. Right? We don't hear about the problem. Probably the problem does not exist, but at the end, the problem does exist, and there's advantages to be gotten from having a strategy around your two-tier portfolio. So that is what we see more and more. And from an SAP perspective, we are also very aware and conscious about, we do have a wider portfolio that actually does provide a good two-tier stack for our customers. So from our point of view, it's definitely a strategic topic for many of our clients. So that's a little bit of context from an SAP perspective and from myself.
Okay, thank you, Peter. And maybe Uffe, you can give a short introduction about yourself and maybe some initial thoughts about the two-tier stuff.
Yes, hello, I'm Uffe. I've been with VELUX for around 16 years, and the past 5 in the role as system owner of SBO, but also responsible for all our SAP finance-related systems. One of the hassles we have seen in VELUX over time is that we have had a lot of smaller local ERP systems, but as they go out of support or we need to replace them or people are changing jobs, we lose the knowledge to see how do we actually report and go back and find documents if we have any audits. So the strategy has been to consolidate the smaller countries into a second tier strategy where we gather the small companies and still allow them some kind of flexibility, but also ensure that we as company can ensure that we do compliance in time and we do it in a structured and in a similar way. So that's one of the parts we have been working for the past 5 years, and we have actually managed to gather all our companies now in either SAP or SBO, and that has been a strategy that has actually taken around 15 to 16 years to ensure that we actually got to that position where we are now, and we have done that journey with SBO together with B1 solutions, and it's been a huge success that we have had a very good partnership.
Okay, thank you, Uffe, also for the nice words. I think I will, no, I don't think, I mean that I will then start the topic in a more broader sense and give the word back to you again and come with some more detailed thoughts about the issue here. It might seem obvious that larger enterprises will have different ERP systems, but over the year I have actually seen a lot of scenarios, and as I said, B1 Solution has chosen the strategy of being a global partner, meaning that most of our customers over time have been international, possible also larger, though even if you're international, you might not be a large customer, you can still be a mid-sized customer. But when we do that, we over time will come across a lot of customers with different ERP solutions. And the main solutions that we see will be coming from SAP, but that's not always the case. It can also, as Peter mentioned, there will be customers who have had a large variety of ERP solutions. But nevertheless, when I started the journey with SAP back in '97, the topic was more or less always having a one-tier strategy, a global fits-all strategy where even if it was small entities or larger entities, you should fit in a template and we should see the benefit of standardizations. So I was actually brought up in the ERP environment with that mind. So the solutions that were and other large offer a one-tier strategy. And I have seen quite a lot of projects going on international where a global template was prepared centrally and it was rolled out. I've seen a lot of benefits from fits. If you have some larger, maybe some production sites around the world who are who need to actually cover the same business processes and be part of the same ecosystem with purchase and delivery, that's obviously a large benefit to be in the same system, in the same platform. And SAP ECC and now S/4HANA actually provide that option. It's the greatest tool for large. I've been very happy to be in projects where I can see the benefit from having production sites around the world benefit from being part of the same solution, both from a rollout perspective and from a maintenance perspective, but not the least from an operational perspective. But what I have also seen is quite some projects where the complexity in SAP ECC might be a greater challenge than actually expected. So even if you have a highly well-prepared global template, the challenge that you see locally might be close to extreme, actually. And not at least if you have a small organization, maybe you work with smaller teams and you're not that diverse in the way that you approach the business processes, then dealing with a large-scale ERP system as S/4HANA might be a big challenge. So that's one of the areas where I have seen the most, that the complexity is actually not suitable for these small organizations. What I have also seen is, from a cost perspective, that actually the time and the resources needed to implement a larger scale ERP solution may not fit what is actually suitable for these smaller organizations. That you actually spend a lot of resources, maybe implementing for like 5, 10, 15 people in a subsidiary, and the cost is unbearable. I know that Peter will also have some examples about that. But given that, I have seen over time that what have changed. First of all, I can see that these organizations will opt for another strategy than the one-tier strategy. But that's not the same as going for a two-tier strategy. And that's the topic we have here today, that a two-tier strategy, as I see it, is having like a larger scale ERP solution centrally, maybe for some decentralized larger sites also, but then opt for SAP Business One as your two-tier solution, because there's a lot of benefits of having a solution with the same technology, with pre-prepared integrations scenarios that can be put in place. And that is also what you just mentioned, Uffe. If you have like 10 different ERP systems around the world, the knowledge about these solutions may disappear, or you may need a greater support organization to go forward with it. So I have seen the change, sometimes because it's needed, sometimes because it's wanted, but nevertheless, it's something that has come up. I don't know how many years, but at least we can see it now, that it's more adequate to have a two-tier, maybe a three-tier strategy in international organizations to comply with what is actually needed and necessary. So from my point of view, I think it's a natural step to opt for a two-tier strategy. Also, if you're going through growth, not at least if you're going through growth via acquisitions, a two-tier strategy might also be something that can help you doing that. So I have seen a lot of this, and I'm looking forward to hear some inputs from you guys, Peter and Uffe, also to bring some information to those who are participating today. So with that, Peter, I think I will give the word to you.
So thanks, Benny. Yeah, I think for the audience, I think one of the key starting points is why would you want to do the two-tier? And what I see in terms of the motivations and discussions that I've been in with various companies, they're all looking for a solution, something quick, or they have a burning need. That is typically something where it starts, but they forget often about how would we strategize. For example, I've been in discussions a couple of years ago with a company, and they were on a regional expansion into Africa. In this example, Africa, and starting also in Asia. And with basically with their portfolio, they started expanding into countries, and they needed something to basically support that expansion strategy. The strategy was open up a sales office first. Once the sales was getting to a decent level, they would acquire a local production site, and then when the country was growing and getting more and more profitable, of course they would like to keep it basically the production site more regional in that respect. So the discussion started by the simple fact that they bought a small factory, and it needed to be live within 6 months for that factory on something, but central IT had no bandwidth to do something. So they came to us and they asked, okay, how could you help? What can we do? And basically we started talking. In this case, it was a Business One, and that was a few years ago. So we didn't have S/4HANA public cloud, or for that territory by design was also an option. So they were looking, okay, what do we have? And part of the expansion plan, of course, was to go into territories and countries that at that time did not have stable, good internet. So that already was making a decision to, in their case, go for SAP Business One, because that supports local deployments if needed. And their Business One installation for that factory was up and, well, basically decided upon and then up and running in 2 months. And that is where they really started to see the benefits, that they could have something up and running quite quickly. And that started to evolve the whole strategy. So now they actually work off a template that supports their strategy, with first going out on a sales office. Sales office is integrated to the main business processes for example, central manufacturing or central distribution, and also to the group reporting. And when a local factory was acquired, they have a second template to be rolled out for a manufacturing environment, again, also fully integrated. So from a burning need, isolated ask, it really turned into a global strategy. And for them, it was really important that they were supporting the business growth. So an investment into a country needed to stay profitable, even if they were small operations. That also meant that the cost, of course, for a solution needed to be at a level that can be absorbed by a local entity. But the local people that were coming in were not as educated and grown up in a full ERP environment. So they also needed something that they could absorb and start to master and learn in a good way. So those are, that's one example of how a two-tier strategy can grow. But I think what is important when you're in an existing organization, take a look at what kind of entities do you not have on your single tier of your main tier solution, and what's the reason behind it? Why do you not have it? And the second step is, of course, okay, if you would have it in a strategic way, what do you need in terms of functionality? What's the business process, the complexity, and also what is the territory? So where are they located? Those are things that you need to really consider, because for example, with SAP Business One, we have 50 country localizations, 27 languages. So it's a good platform for international deployments. And with Business by Design, we also have 17 countries, and we have a partner landscape that can support it. By Design serves a different level of company. And as for public cloud, of course, again, works on a different type of companies and different business scenarios. So the key starting point is, what do you need? What are the entities and their size and the complexity needs? And from there, you can start to fill in the blanks by deciding what would be the right way forward in a two-tier environment. So that's a little bit of, I think, maybe good pointers for the audience to make it a bit more tangible of what do we need to start thinking about.
Well, thank you, Peter. Yeah, I guess you're right. There's a lot of angles to the reason why you would opt for a two-tier strategy. I noticed you mentioned the time factor, and definitely also if you acquire businesses around the world, we see some customers opting for something that is faster implemented. Do you agree with that? Do you see that?
Definitely. Typically, when you acquire a company, larger or smaller, there is a transition period. for the company often to actually start getting out of their solution, their main solution, onto a new platform. So if you're in a TSA environment, then of course time is of the essence, because you only have a limited period in which you can continue to run in their current system. If their current system is a local hero solution, of course time is less of a burning thing, but if you don't start to address it from the start, you will end up with a large mix of landscape.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to forget about that, and then suddenly a few years later you're faced with a very diverse landscape. So yeah, time definitely is important, and smaller companies, smaller entities, that also means smaller P&Ls, meaning your total cost need to be down, and then a quick solution that really serves the purpose of the needs that the business needs, business requires in the business processes. That is of the essence. So yeah, time is important.
Yeah, that's also what I see. I have actually I'm currently working with a case. We have a US-based customer who has a one-tier strategy with a large enterprise. It's actually not even SAP. It's actually an Oracle implementation, but that doesn't matter. It actually the same. But they are. It's a very expensive company. They are acquiring customers around the world in their business, and due to the fact that actually implementing the larger scale solution is time consuming, and you already have a project plan or a program plan in place, and you have planned for the next year or maybe the next 2 years what you're going to do, and then suddenly the business acquire a subsidiary, in this case in Denmark some years ago, and it does not fit into the global plan. So what do we do then? Do we then keep the current ERP system? Maybe it's time to change that, and do we change it into, as you say, a local hero? There are a lot of really good ERP systems around the world, but the thing is, if you have a lot of different ERP systems, you have a lot of different systems to support. So that's the reason why we are talking to this customer, to try to keep it more simple with simple solutions and not that many. So I agree with you that time is a factor, not only because you can implement faster, but also because you can come above the obstacles in the program that has already been taken care of.
Yeah.
Okay.
But maybe Uffe, maybe you could elaborate a little bit in terms of what was the reason and rationale at VELUX for deciding for the 2-tier, but also how did you manage the rollout to the different countries and territories?
Yeah, I think I can echo on time, and I would also say cost, business processes. So a lot of this I can totally agree on. Our SBO companies are running from Australia and New Zealand to Eastern Europe to South America and Canada. So we are covering a lot of time zones, and a lot of these people need to do the work themselves. We don't have a big organization working outside these time zones except for Europe. And that means there's a lot more work for these companies to do themselves, and less support, because we need to keep things at an efficient level. And that's why that we have chosen this strategy, in order to make it easier and more efficient for these companies to operate and keep the cost down, because it's not some of our main markets. So yeah, I can completely echo on what you said, Peter. It's efficiency, and in the end also cost that needs to be taken into consideration here. And also having a support partner that actually are present in these time zones and can support the companies locally there, because there's no central organization to support them on a lot of things, but still they need to report in the same way. They have things they need to comply with. So a lot of decentralized things but still with a lot of compliance and timelines they need to comply with for central reporting.
Yeah. And there's 2 points there that you mentioned, Uffe. One is of course the type of integrations. But before maybe touching on the type of integrations and the way that those entities are then integrated into the corporate structures, what kind of companies do you have that actually run SAP Business One?
The companies that are running on SBO are smaller or mid-range sales companies. So it really differs from really small entities to large entities, actually having a quite a big scope, like we have in Canada, with more sales offices. So it is actually covering a big range here. And we also have actually set up a small support organization within these countries where we have meetings where it's possible on different time zones to actually share experiences and say, what are you doing in Australia? Can we do that in Canada or vice versa? Also with our markets in Eastern Europe. So we try to share experiences, but also to structure our reporting so we don't have too many different queries doing the same. Because it's a hassle over time to maintain a lot of different queries, and maybe we have named things in a different way. So there's a lot of things we try to structure, even though we have a lot of flexibility.
Okay, good. Hey, and you already mentioned the standardization. What you said, how we're trying to learn and we're trying to keep the entities kind of standard in the way that they do the reporting, etc. But could you elaborate a little bit more of the integrations that the entities are running and how that fits within the corporate structure?
Yeah, you could say that's one of the trade-offs with SBOs. That is that to keep things at a cost-efficient level, we have not had that many integrations, and that's a corporate decision. So it's not the system that is the limitation here, but it's simply a strategy to have a simple setup here. We have a lot of local add-ons developed together with local partners and business, B1 solutions in order to comply with local legislation. So that's where we have our complexity. That's on the local add-ons. But the strategy has been to keep things at a more simple setup with our SBO companies. But it's not a limitation to the system. It's more strategy from our side to do less.
Okay, good. Thanks, Uffe.
Maybe I can add just a small comment there, because one of the things that we see is that the benefit of having SAP Business One as a two-tier is actually, and that's also what you said, Uffe, it's not a limitation to the system. It's mainly a matter of whether you choose to integrate them, because what we see is that actually quite a lot of our customers take advantage of the tools that are part of SAP Business One to integrate the business processes. And that is mainly from a logistics point of view, so that you integrate your supply chain, so you do not have to re-enter or actually act as if you were two different entities. So SAP Business One is able to communicate directly with an ECC implementation or S4 Hana implementation, and we see that quite a lot actually. And in a lot of our projects around the world, we have integrated with this standard tool that is part of SAP Business One. But maybe I can add. You already mentioned it a little bit, Uffe. But some of the things, one of the things that we at B1 Solutions are happy to provide is of course our international organization. So maybe I can ask you again, or whatever you say, that having a global partner, how essential is that for for going with the global strategy, a global two-tier strategy?
I would say that's one of the main or most important thing for us, that we can do things together with a partner here, and we're actually not doing a lot from central side here. We actually get a lot of support from B1 solution side here, and as we're also keeping things at an efficient level. That's actually doable together with our local people, who is also doing a great job here. If we had the big SAP, it would be a need to do a lot more. So that's one of the things we said, okay, we can do things in a bit more simple way, and we can do that together with our partner to have a cost efficient setup, because they are present at the time zones where a lot of our European people that are doing all the group stuff are not working. So that's one of the benefits of having a global partner here that is present, and is also knowing our people locally, what works in Canada, what works in New Zealand and Argentina, and has some local knowledge also. So that's one of the key benefits that we see.
Thank you, Uffe. And that is, of course, also something that we strive to obtain, and that also goes together with the cooperation we have with SAP, because we are regarded as an international partner. It's a lot of the leads and the customers that we support globally, we do together with SAP, and we have a splendid cooperation there. So that's also nice. Peter, maybe we have two-tier strategy. That is, of course, in this topic, and also seen from our point of view, it's S4 Hana and B1 solution. But we know there's also by design that is part of the portfolio. And another thing, maybe more interesting, is actually the S4 public cloud, which you may or may not, of course you know, Peter, but maybe the audience doesn't know that the B1 solution actually also supports S4 Hana. We started some years ago in the US, and we are starting up in Europe this year actually to support the S4 Hana, and we will focus also on the public cloud. But a two-tier strategy can actually be easy: S4 Hana on premise, and also S4 public cloud. How do you see that one?
Yeah, good question. At the end, what you mentioned, we have SAP Business One, SAP ByDesign, and S4 Hana public cloud that are, from an SAP perspective, more positioned also as a two-tier. Just to be clear, all three products have their own committed roadmap, their own future, and their own investments and capabilities. So it's all three are a strategic component of our ERP portfolio. And then to your question, Benny, the need and the requirements of the client, they will basically determine which solution would be the best fit for their two-tier. And from my point of view, I really don't care which solution is considered to be the two-tier, or if you choose for a single tier. But it serves its own purpose. Now, if you look at a very simple thing, I've been talking with a client, and they had a production site in China. And in China, we have this great firewall of China, and there's a requirement of having data residing local. But they didn't want all the data to reside in China. So how do you deal with that? And that in itself was a justification to have a Business One in China, to isolate it out. So there's different reasons, also let's say business process reasons, that would answer that question basically of, do you do the two-tier with Business One, with S4 Hana, or with ByDesign?
Yeah, and seen from our perspective, I would say maybe I care a little bit more, because still SAP Business One is quite a large part of our business,
Yeah.
and also maybe seen from the kind of customers that we are working with, it's more obvious that Business One is the true tier one, because these global companies with rollouts and with different sizes of subsidiaries, it's still SAP Business One that is the option for a two-tier strategy. So that's what we see, and that's normally also what we will go for, and that's also the discussions I have with you when we talk with about new customers.
Yeah,
so I think, yeah.
As for Hana, for example, has an inherent complexity because it's designed for larger entities, larger organizations. So a financial process is more complex. A delivery process in manufacturing or in wholesale distribution is more complex. There's multiple options to actually run the process, control the process, and manage the process. Is that a complexity that the entities need? Because that basically is already a deciding factor. You want to go single tier or multi-tier. And if you go for a multi-tier, what is then for the tier 2 or tier 3? What is the complexity need for those type of entities? That's what you have to look at. I'm looking a little bit at the time, but I do see also a question popping up about S4 HANA licenses and Business One licenses. So I guess that's kind of a question that I also need to pick up on.
I think that's one for you, yeah.
Yeah. So from a licensing perspective, we of course have the licenses from the two different products. First, a little bit high level. If you look at it from a two-tier strategy point of view, let's say as a headquarter you license Business One. That means you can deploy Business One to multiple entities around the world, as long as it fits in the affiliate usage. But you can deploy it around the world. So what we often see is that when a specific entity goes out of Business One into S4 or the main solution, other entities or other companies might be acquired, and licenses will be reassigned to other need to exchange licenses from Business One into S4. In the scenario where you think you have, let's say, too many Business One licenses, then obviously there is a possibility to what do we do with those licenses that we don't need from an SAP Business One perspective. So that is more on a case-by-case basis, but I think the ground assumption is, do you need to switch the licenses, or do you need to actually?
But Peter, what we also see with the licenses is, and that's also an option if you are heading into a two-tier strategy right now, that there's an option to go for subscription-based licenses.
Right.
Because if you do that, then the change from one to another is not that big a deal, actually.
Yeah, that's a good point. That might not be obvious to the audience, but with SAP Business One, by design and S/4HANA Cloud are subscription licenses because they're cloud-based. SAP Business One has two license options. It's either perpetual, you buy and you have a maintenance agreement to those, or you take a subscription, meaning they're being facilitated by the partner in somewhere in the cloud, but you pay a per use per month. And then you have a subscription period, and if that period expires, you can easily either terminate, stop renewing it, or you can decrease. So yeah, the license model indeed also impacts what do you do with the Business One license if you have transitioned to S4.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, Uffe, if you have anything to add to this part of it, or we have everything that was on your board for today?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah. So Lucille, do you have a hand on the Q&A? I think there was someone coming up here.
Yeah, there's now one coming up. I'm reading.
Yeah, there are two questions actually. So I don't know, maybe You just answered the first one, but
Yeah.
maybe you want to add something on it. But then there's another one about from Silva, and it's for you, Peter. Do you care to read it and read it for the audience and answer it?
Yeah. So question is, we're on ECC and we have 10 B1 subsidiaries in 9 countries, China, India, Europe, Canada. Highly integrated with B1 ISN. So that's the integration function between Business One and ECC or S4. And documents going from B1 to ECC and ECC to B1. From BW, where we integrate sales documents, and with BW reports with data from subsidiaries. Now we migrate ECC to S4HANA, and management wants to have S4HANA in all subsidiaries. My question is, are we going in the wrong direction? Well, good question. I'm not sure what kind of answer you kind of expect from me, because I'm not the one to answer right or wrong. It is a discussion that I hear from many other companies as well. The management has a specific view of what is required from a company perspective. So I'm definitely not going to argue if that is a wrong direction or not. But from an operational point of view, the need not always is there to actually migrate from S4, from Business One to or ByDesign into S4 in a single tier. So yeah, it's a difficult one to say, are we heading in the wrong direction? It is a direction. It can be a good direction, but it can also be a direction that has a consequence, because there are companies that chose for a 2-tier strategy because the first single tier solution is just too big and too complex. So from a product strategy point of view, and from a roadmap commitment point of view from SAP, all products are still there. Of course, we talk more as SAP, we talk more about S4HANA. You might get the impression that we only have S4HANA, but we do have, and we do continue to have ByDesign and Business One, also for the 2-tier strategies. So sorry, Augusto, I hope that answers it to a certain level, but without knowing your specific company, I don't think I can actually make any further comments about the sanity of your direction.
I think we're also back to what we have been talking about. Why are you actually considering a 2-tier strategy? What is the reason behind it? And one of the reasons can be, then again, we don't know what kind of organization we're dealing with here from you, Augusto, but still, I think the same applies. If it's still like not that large entities from a people point of view, there's of course going for S4HANA can be an option, but you still need to consider the same fears that there's no reason why you cannot stay with a 2-tier strategy, even if you are going for S4HANA. We still see that, of course.
Maybe one more comment to the question of Augusto. I have been talking also with another client about exactly this topic, about management wanting to fully transition to S4HANA. And from that point of view, also transitioning out of Business One. When I was talking with basically that customer, the people that work with Business One, they actually were doubtful. We're doubtful for 2 reasons. Doubtful fit to purpose. Is S4HANA really going to fit the purpose and the needs of the client, or will it produce too much overhead? So basically coming back to reason 1, why would you have a 2-tier? But they were also doubtful because the company, the whole transition to S4HANA, and we're talking about a company with 100,000 employees or more, the company transition is a huge effort. It's a big effort. And the fear is, will the entities that currently are running Business One have a priority and when will they have the priority to switch to S/4HANA? And on a personal note, the person mentioned to me that they were doubtful that even if they would fully transition to S/4HANA, that they would actually do that within the next 5 years. So from that point of view, I'm always a little bit, let's say, skeptical on those type of transitions.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to say that it's still the same things that should be considered if you're going, even if it's an upgrade. It's still the same effort you need to consider for these subsidiaries. So, and just to make it clear, there's of course there will be some things to do when you upgrade to keep the integration working, but there's you will be able to integrate to S/4HANA as well as the ECC. It's not an issue. So it's an issue. It's not a big issue. Okay. So Lucille, do we have others on the line, or are we meeting our time limit?
We don't have any other questions. We do have 5 minutes, so let's ask people if you have any other question. We have time for one last point. So please type in. Let us know. Let's give them a couple seconds. On your end, do you have, I'm speaking to the panelists now, do you have any points that might have not been mentioned and you feel are relevant for the audience in these last 5 minutes or not? Or something you wish to highlight?
No, I would think my call to action would be start thinking about would a 2-tier make sense, or would it make sense to continue on a 2-tier, or what do you want to do next? And I'm sure that I can speak on behalf of B1 Solutions as well. I'm happy to be available for any discussions that you might have on a more one-to-one engagement and more specific to your situation. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, and I can add to that. That's absolutely right to say that of course we are happy to join in on discussions about this topic. If you have some challenges that you foresee, if you have some questions, I think one of the things that I would like to highlight is actually this thing of having a 2-tier strategy can be something that you definitely go for, and you are very strict about it, that this is what you're going for. But actually a lot of times we see having a 2-tier strategy is something that comes out all the time because it just happens. So what I would urge people to do in a complicated ERP landscape is to really consider the benefit of having a 2-tier strategy instead of only focusing on a 1-tier strategy, and doing it on purpose. Take the time to really consider it. And of course we are happy, and I know SAP will also be happy to join that discussion.
Yeah, I think it's so important to include all the other things than just the system. It's a human, it's all the other things around doing business, because a system perspective alone is not enough. It needs to be much more widespread when you consider your strategy.
Perfect.
Then as a closing comment, also from an SAP perspective, appreciate the partnership with B1 Solutions, but also appreciate it very much to Uffe for taking the time to tell your story. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay, no additional questions, so it's time to say goodbye. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, audience, for coming and listening to this podcast live webinar. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you next time, 25th of March, for a two-tier still related webinar, but in Asia, and based on standardization and templates. You'll can have more information about this in our social media and on our website very soon.